Oh, great. Awesome sauce. We are live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Tea Time Tuesday. So glad you're here. If you are listening after the fact, thanks so much for listening. And I'm going to be introducing my special guest, Larry Broughton, in a little bit. But first, I want to remind you about this is Fair Trade Month. October is Fair Trade Month. If you're not familiar with what Fair Trade is, go to the Baskets and Beads website and look in the blog. I did a blog post about fair trade. I'm going to be blogging a couple of more times about fair trade organizations. Basically, in a nutshell, what fair trade is understanding where your things are purchased and the whole supply chain, and understanding that people are getting paid fair wages. There's no child labor. They have empowering working conditions. So basically who's making your products, who's making your clothes, who's making some of your things like chocolate, tea, things like baskets and beads, the things that we produce. So knowing that the artisans are getting paid a fair wage and that they're able to support their families, and there's no children working and things like that. So obviously it's Tea Time Tuesday. We have our tea here tonight. I have tea from Kenya. This is from Just Tea. I got this. This is a Serve product. And this is actually a Kenya tea, and right on the label, it shows the farmer. So you know that the farmer is actually part of the production, and they're promoted and supported. And this is a fair trade product. Actually, they're a member of the Fair Trade Federation, as well as I'm a member of the Fair Trade Federation as well. And what organizations like that do, verify your whole business practice. I had to go through a stringent review to make sure that I met the 9 principles of fair trade. And you can see more about that in the blog. So a couple of reminders. Next week, we have Cam from Fazzle, basically talking about socks and mittens and things that they make. And at the end of the month, don't forget to register for Tea with a Purpose, where we go offline and we have our trunk show. So those are a couple things coming up. They'll be publicized on the page and on the profile, so you'll be able to follow those. All right, well, let's get into our talk tonight. I'm so excited to have my good friend and fellow veteran brother, Larry Broughton, here. Welcome.
Hello, Aldana. How are you?
I am awesome sauce.
Good. Well, cheers, by the way.
Oh, yes.
Tea time. Thank you.
Time, yes.
Click, clink.
Clink, clink. That's what. So I always like to talk a little bit about why we do tea. So I call it Tea Time Tuesday. Tea is a celebratory thing that I do with my ladies right before I come back from Kenya. We have a tea party and we celebrate with tea. So and I do this every week, calling it Tea Time Tuesday. And every time I sip some tea, I remember and think about them and the struggles that they're having in Kenya. So
I think it's great. Congratulations, by the way. I love your backdrop, by the way. I love it. Yeah, tea is one of those weird things, right? Culturally, I mean, it's been around for centuries. And as you said, it's kind of a celebratory drink. And so when we stop and think about why we do things, it really, gratitude. I was just going to say, it gives us a sense of gratitude about where we are today, I think. But
definitely.
Do you remember the conversation we had the night that you were contemplating, should I go to Kenya?
Yes.
Do you remember what I told you?
No, I don't.
I said, if you go, it will change your life.
Yes.
You can't even imagine right now. And look at you, Aldana Lewis Fernandez, on what you are doing now.
Who'd have thunk it?
Oh, I thunked it. Yeah. I told you something was going to happen that you're not even going to think of. And you just inspire me. Every time I see you online doing what you're doing and seeing how you have changed over the last few years, it's inspiring. It's absolutely inspiring. So congratulations on what you're doing. You're changing the world in ways you can't even imagine right now.
Well, it's definitely changed me. And I went over there thinking, because we were at Craig Duswalt's Rock Your Life event that he had, that event. And I had met and talked to Steve Rutenbar, who's been going to Kenya for 20 years at a previous event. And, it was kind of one of those things that I thought about, and maybe I'll go to Kenya one day. And then I saw him again, and it was just, and I remember you asking me, are you thinking of going? And I said, yeah, I'm thinking of going. And it just was all over me to go. And it did change my life. I only went over there with the intention to be of service. I figured that I would come back and I'd go again or whatever, but
Yeah.
I came back with a half a suitcase of beads, and now I've got
And now you're going to
more
life
than that.
mission.
And this
Yeah.
isn't even a drop in the bucket of the beads. I got beads everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a beautiful thing for sure.
We started with 5 women and we're up to 34 now.
Yeah. Yeah. I picked my son up from lacrosse practice tonight, and we were talking. We love to travel, and he knows my fondness for Africa, and we keep talking about going. And it's one of the things I'm grateful for, is to be able to give my kids the opportunity to open their eyes and see what's really going on out there in the world. Right. And, but he's excited that one day we get to Africa as well. He wants to go back to Mexico, here pretty soon as well. But it's given him a sense of gratitude that even during the struggles that we're having right now here in this country, in many ways, we have it so much better, in some ways than people around the world. But I remember the first time I had gone to the African continent. I went to Kenya and Tanzania first. Is that I thought I was going to go there with, this American, with everything I've got, but I traveled enough in the military to realize that even in third world, squalor, frontier nations is what we used to call them, that there are people that find joy in what we would think would be the bleakest moments of life, right?
Yeah.
In the ghettos around the world. You've been to some of these ghettos, right? And that some of these women can still find joy there in spite of their circumstance. It's a great lesson for us here today.
Which is why I wanted our topic to be gratitude tonight.
Yeah.
And I always like to look up what the definition of a topic is. So the dictionary says it's the quality of being thankful, readiness to show appreciation for and to return kindness. And then kindness is the quality of being friendly, generous, and considerate. There's actually a World Gratitude Day on September 21st, but it doesn't have to be a day. It's something you can do every single day.
I think it has to be something that you do every day. What's the alternative?
Right. Being miserable.
It is.
Yeah.
It's easier to be anxious than to be grateful. If you think about what's the opposite of gratitude, it's being grateful. It's being ungrateful, right?
Right.
And if you think about anxiety is part of our DNA, right? It is. It's really, it's one of the things that has helped the survival of the species, is being anxious, always on guard. When we're ungrateful or when we're anxious, listen, I always have to preface this. Everything I'm about to say may be wrong. These are my opinions.
Right.
Some of them is based on experience, some on reading, some on research. But when you start pontificating and just talking like we're just riffing here right now, keep your anger and your hatred to yourself. Okay. Exactly. But my belief is that from all the reading and study that I've done, is that it's anxiety that's kept us on guard. When we are anxious and ungrateful, I believe that it's out of fear. I think that it's out of fear that if I am grateful or content, then really what that's telling me is that it's okay to be right where I am right now, right? That can be dangerous. 3,000 years ago, 1,000,000 years ago, that would have been dangerous if I was content sitting right here, because then the saber-toothed tigers come and get me, right? So there's this weird drive that we get that we've always got to be moving, and we can't accept what's the good in where we are. But I think that for those people who have had psychedelic experiences, you kind of know that we've got to accept where we are, because we can't really, there's not a lot that we can do. We can change our attitudes for sure. But I can tell you, Aldana, that I lived in that anxious, ungrateful spirit most of my life. And it's only been maybe the last couple of decades where I've started getting intentional about gratitude and doing a gratitude journal every night, and we could talk about all of that, but believe me, I think it takes more courage, I believe, to be grateful, to be hopeful, and to be optimistic than it does to be anxious.
I think you're right. I see so many people. I did a training at a base in Indiana,
Yeah.
and it was a leadership training, and it was the
Mhm.
last day of the training. It was a kind of a refresh, and I had everybody sit around the room. And one of the things I had them do was to go around the room and say just one goal. What is one goal you have for this year?
I like
Just
it.
one goal. I said it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be work. It can be personal or professional, just one goal.
Yeah.
And the first guy says, "Oh, I really want to get my rock garden finished. I have a landscaping project before the winter comes. I want to get that finished. So that's my goal. And I want to finish that because I had them do a goal setting statement. It is now blank and I have or I am
Oh, I
blank."
do that too. Yeah, right. No,
Yeah,
you
so
gotta,
they did that, and so I was like, "Okay, by when?" And he had the date, and I said, "Great." And then we went to the next lady who had been somebody who sat through the whole class like this.
oh yeah.
I mean, she was
Hmm.
hard nut to crack. So, and I said, "Okay, what about you?" And she sat there for a while, and she said, I just want to make it to retirement in 3 years."
Wow.
And I thought, I asked her, gently asked her, I'm like, you don't have any, like, is there something you want to do this year? Maybe you want to go on vacation somewhere? No, I just want to make it to retirement in 3 years. And I thought, wow, how sad. That's all that you have. And then when you make it to retirement, then what? Are you done? Are you going to?
Yeah.
She was so, you could just see it in her face. She was so unhappy, and she was
Yeah.
so stuck in it. And
Right.
then the next person shared, and then the fourth person's had the same goal. I just want to make it to retirement. And I thought, wow.
Yeah. Sadly, there's a whole segment of society that lives like that.
Yeah.
There were times when I was growing up that I think my parents, that's how they were, It's kind of survival mode, right? Like I said, it takes courage though to dream about things could be different.
Yeah.
Right? It takes guts to do that. It's a sad state when people get stuck there. And in my best moments, I try to get into those lives and help them see that things could be different. In my worst moments, I'll be honest, I can't be around those people.
Right. Yeah. Because that
sucks my lifeblood, right?
Yeah.
And it takes effort for me too, right? I mean, because it does take effort to try to pull people out of that. Sadly, you and I both know people that have gotten into that spot where they get to that spot where it's survival mode, and then it starts to spiral. And then what happens? The really dark stuff creeps in, like, the world would be better without me, right? I've been there, right? And then some people actually go to the extreme, right? And that's really super sad. When
it is.
Happens. Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. It's going to Kenya, and I like we said a minute ago, I've been 23 years in the military, so I've seen some stuff. I've been to places, and so it was no different going to Kenya and seeing a slum or seeing kids on the streets. Not like I'd never seen that before, but I was there in a different mode. I wasn't there serving in a military mode. I was there serving in a different mode. But when I saw these women, and when it was one of the last places we went on the trip. The trip was a 10-day trip, and it was one of the last places we went. And we had been to schools, and we'd been to special needs schools, and we'd been to clinics and prisons and kids on the street, and seen all kinds of different things, and taken supplies, and just we went up this place called Mount Elgon, which was way up in the middle of nowhere, and it was hard to get up there, and it took supplies to them. And but we got there to the Kipsongo slum where my ladies are, and they were inside this room, this building that had been built for them to have kind of a meeting room. And they live in little mud huts, probably about the size of my dining room, tin roof, dirt floor, some of them concrete, no running water, but they were singing. They were singing with such joy. And I could feel it. It wasn't just that they were singing. They were really singing with joy, and it touched my heart. It touched me. spirit. I was just like, what?
Yeah.
And they were so, I shared some of my story of some of the things I'd been through, and another person shared her story. And then Pastor Steve, who was on leader of the trip, asked the women to gather around us and pray for us.
For you. Right.
I lost it.
Yep.
I started sobbing my eyes out.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I was just like, they're praying over me fervently, and I'm just like, they have nothing, and they're just giving of themselves, and I'm just like, I just couldn't stop. I was just, the tears were flowing.
Yeah.
And I knew I wanted to come back to serve them further, and one of the ladies gave me one of the necklaces like this back here, paper bead necklace, and wanted sponsorship for her son, and the rest is history, because I woke up in the middle of the night with this: buy some beads, sell them with your book when you speak. Brought back a little half a suitcase of beads. That's all I brought back.
Yeah, it's amazing when you reflect back on those life-changing moments. I have a similar situation too. I remember being in, several of them, but the whole singing thing, in spite of what we would consider squalor conditions. The interesting thing for those folks who haven't been to this part of Africa, I've been to, I think, I don't know, at least 15 countries on the continent. Mostly Eastern and Southern Africa. But I remember a particular time in both Tanzania and in Zimbabwe, seeing conditions that are just almost unspeakable. Almost. I mean, I've seen worse, but almost. But hearing people sing with such joy and loving, like truly loving me, and people are with me unconditionally. They didn't know who the heck I was, but just because I was there, they were praying for me, praying over me, putting their arm around me. And, but you don't see that here in the US. We get so self-conscious about putting our arm around someone, or, like culturally, you've seen this, right? Where men will walk hand in hand, not because it's anything weird or sexual, but because they love each other. They treat each other like brothers, right? And I remember coming back, Eldana, from several of those trips and really having to fight the resentment that I was finding for the waste and the I don't use the word hatred, but the waste, the indifference that we have towards people. And so pretty regularly, I count my blessings for being able to travel, travel even in times when it's when it's a tough situation. There's a saying about travel that says travel is the antidote to racism. Think about that, isn't it?
That's
your eyes been opened up more towards other cultures, other beings, other people because of travel, right?
Yeah. And I've lived in other parts of the world too, and deployed to different places, and experienced many, many different cultures. I've been to Tunisia. That was the only other place I'd been on the continent. But and I keep saying I want to go other places one day, but right now Kenya is where my heart is, and Kenya is where my mission is, just the second time I went. So the first time I went, and I was like, oh, I'm going to buy some beads, and they gathered about 10 women that made beads. Yeah. And 5 of those women kind of started in our group, and they were I bought some things, and it was half a suitcase full, and I brought them back and sold out, and they were kind of like, oh yeah, we hear that all the time. You're going to help us. And they didn't trust or believe or whatever. They thought, sure, we'll never hear from her again, which I can understand. People get over there and they get grandiose ideas, and then they come back and life gets in the way. No harm, no foul with that. But then I placed another order, and I kind of doubled the order. And then I had a whole suitcase. And then I came back in July, and I brought back, with all the other people that went on the trip, 7 suitcases. And that's when they were like, oh, okay.
She's serious.
So I showed up to the original 5 women, and Patricia, who the paper beads are named after, because she's the one who gave me that the necklace. She looked me up and down and she said no, and she turned around and walked away. And I thought, uh-oh,
Oops.
what have I done? She
Yeah.
comes back out with beads and a blanket, and she ties a tribal blanket around me and puts all these beads on me.
That's
She's
a big
like,
deal.
if you're gonna be with us, you have to look like us.
There you go. Yeah.
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 So they say I'm not Mzungu, I'm Kenyan.
Yeah, that's good. That's
Yeah.
a good thing. That's an honor, you know.
Yeah, it is.
And what I find fascinating about you is that I've seen plenty of your videos. I've been to your house, and you've got this stuff at your house, and so you're immersed in your mission, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I wonder. I mean, you talk to people all the time about this stuff. I wonder how many, this topic of gratitude. I was talking to my son about it this afternoon on the way home. I told him I was going to be doing this call, and they wanted to know what we were going to be talking about. And I told them, it's like, I believe it's very difficult for people to find gratitude, most people to find gratitude in today's social, economic, and political climate. You know,
Yes.
I mean, I talk to people, well, we know this, right? I mean, a lot of the stats have been revealed. They're shared recently that depression and overdoses are up 30% since the lockdown. I haven't seen a specific number, but we know that suicides are increasing. So clearly there is a large segment of society who aren't finding enough things to be grateful for, right? So Eldana, what are you grateful for right now? I mean, we're just having a conversation. What are you finding gratitude in these days?
Well, so I wake up every morning.
I know a little bit about what's going on in your life, but what are you grateful for?
Well, I wake up every morning and I'm like, just the basics, you know. I've got a roof over my head. I've got clothes to wear. I've got electricity. I've got a kitchen, and I can get up. That's a win for some people. That would be a win to be able to get up and move.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for one of the things I'm grateful for that was about a year ago. I felt like a failure. I felt a lot of shame. I had to go back to a job. Because my speaking business dried up, and it wasn't. And then this was in jeopardy of failing, and I'm like, I'm not going to let this fail. I'm not going to let these women down. I've got 34 women and their families depending on me. Yeah. And so I prayed about it, and I cried about it, and I felt like a failure. And I applied for a job, and they L3 Harris in Anaheim hired me like that. And I'm grateful for that job. Because it enables me to be able to, because I made a commitment not to take loans. I wanted to be able to have this eventually support itself, but with the pandemic, that's kind of been slow. But I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the job. I'm just, I'm grateful for my health. There's so many things. I'm grateful for my little garden sanctuary out there in my patio.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for George, my cat.
Yeah. I love that you list that stuff. I would encourage folks to do that. Every night I do that before I go to bed on my best nights. Again, I'm not perfect. There are days that are much better than others, but on my good days, before I go to bed, before I close my pretty little eyes, sometimes I actually write it out. Other times I just list it mentally as I'm preparing for bed, is I have to list literally, just like you did, things that I'm grateful for. Because what I found, Eldana, is that when I don't do that, I'm more likely to focus on the negative stuff that's going on in my life, right?
Easy to do.
Woe is me, that stupid meeting I had today, or that idiot that did this, right? And when you study how the brain works, that's the stuff that your brain starts filing at night. And you tend to, some sleep studies have shown, that you tend to wake up the way you go to sleep. So if you go to bed feeling anxious, if you go to bed thinking about, the news that you just watched, or the Full Metal Jacket movie you just watched before you go to bed, that's how you're going to wake up. But if you go to bed feeling grateful, you're more likely to wake with a spirit of gratitude. And one of the things that we do in our organization now is every morning we have a morning stand-up. It's on all hands on deck. We do it by video now. But just very quickly, everyone has to start with a gratitude. Here's what I'm grateful for. Then we go into here's what my action items are for the day. And it's so nice to hear people say how that they're grateful for each other and that they're grateful that they list them, right? But I'll tell you, it's hard in this environment for me, who's kind of like a seasoned vet at this kind of. I mean, I'm a toddler when it comes to this, being grateful and having a positive attitude all the time. I struggle with it myself,
Oh, I do too.
Sometimes I catch myself praying that God changes the circumstance, right? But what I've realized, again, when I'm in my sober mind, thinking clearly, I do have to remind myself. I had a spiritual mentor, I think you might have met him before. I had a spiritual mentor one time who said that God is more interested in changing us than changing our circumstance.
Yes.
Get your brain around that for a second. Yeah. But I want the circumstance to change. Right. I'm good enough.
Well, so
and I fight it sometimes.
I have a challenge with people who do frustrating things, like you ask them a question and they don't answer it. Like, what? Are you kidding? So I have this above my desk.
Be kind. Little reminder. Note to self.
It's like, yes, because like I'll be like, okay, really, I'm really getting ready to like machete this person. I'm like, I can't do that. I gotta be kind. And Pastor Rick from Saddleback says extra grace required, EGR. So I'll be like, EGR, EGR, EGR.
That reminds me of one of the mantras that we have right now in our organization is to offer grace. What is it? Grace, patience, and forgiveness freely and often.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Offer grace, patience, and forgiveness freely and often. Because everyone is stressed right now. Everyone is doing more with less. Everyone's on the freaking edge right now. So if we just say, hey, the actions that are coming from this person, the tone I'm getting from this person, or whatever it is probably has nothing to do with me, but has to do with circumstance, right? It's easy. It's much easier to forgive them than to say, why are you coming at me with this attitude? And one of the things that we have found, I found in my life, and we talk about this at our morning stand-ups in my company. And the reason I'm saying this with my company is because this is a corporate thing. When I say corporate, I don't mean business. I mean, like, it's a global thing that we need to do, I believe, is to encourage people to be more grateful. Is that I've recognized is that gratitude and anxiety can't live in the same space at the same time.
Exactly.
It's very difficult for that to happen. And so because of that, we're doing a sweepstakes in our company. And by the way, one of the companies I have is a hotel company. We're doing a sweepstakes in the hotel company right now where we're encouraging people to do, it's called Broughton United. And we're giving away a stay at one of our hotels and $1,000 towards the travel expenses if people will go online and share what they're grateful for. Right. I think we need to see more.
I love that contest. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Share a little bit more about that. That is just fantastic.
So I don't remember all the details, but people can go online to the Broughton Hotels Instagram account, and there's stuff on there that if you do an Instagram post, and it can be a video or a story or whatever, but if you do the hashtag Broughton United, or then go to broughtonhotels.com / Broughton United. They can see the details of it. But you just do a post and list what you're grateful for. And then you tag a couple of people and use the hashtag, and you're entered into a sweepstakes. And we started it on Patriots Day, September 11th, for a reason, because I don't know. You and I have talked about this before, but September 11th and the aftermath of that was a time when we came together as a country. Yeah. And the sad part about that is I don't think it lasted long enough. But I remember I've got friends who were directly involved with the events of 9/11, and then who volunteered to go protect the country afterwards. And there's plenty of video, plenty of stories out there about how people selflessly ran to help people who were in need. risking their own lives, and some people giving their own lives to help other people, right?
Yeah.
Boy, there ought to be a ton of gratitude about that. So it started on September 11th and is running through Veterans Day, November 11th. And then on November 12th, we're going to pick a winner from people who post. And you can post as many times as you want. Every time you post, you get a new, you enter again to win. But we're giving away I think we're giving away a 2-night stay and then $1,000 towards travel expenses. And in today's environment, $1,000 ought to cover a lot of travel.
Yeah. So that's really awesome. And
I want more people just to do. I'm not doing this to bring light to us. I want it just, hey, they're doing something like that. Why don't we do something like that? That's what I'm hoping for. Yeah,
like a catch. Kind of
Yeah.
like pay it forward.
I remember it reminded me just now, and I hadn't thought about this song in 100 years, for crying out loud. I remember going to church camp, and I didn't even know what church camp was when I was a kid, and I didn't really come to faith until I was, a couple decades ago. I don't know if it's been that at this point. But there was a song called, I don't know what it's called, but I don't know what to pass it on, maybe. It only takes a spark to keep a fire going or something like that. But the whole point is it only takes something tiny for something huge to ignite a huge forest fire. Crying out loud, we're in California. I mean, we know that to be true, don't we? Throw a cigarette butt out the window and all of a sudden you lose 1 million acres. But it's so true. So this whole gratitude seed, the spark from gratitude, I think is a very, very powerful thing. And I think that if that were our first response to things, a sense of gratitude rather than spite, anger, resentment, victimhood, how would our society be different? It's a question. It's a question.
Definitely. And one thing that I find, and you've probably found it too, that people are just looking to be offended so they can get in that strife and that anger and that go on the attack.
I've been there. I lived much of my life in that space, right?
Oh, I did too.
Being a victim, I was victimized, and because of that, I'm going to be angry. F you. I don't trust you. Humans don't deserve it. Humans are garbage. I was there. It's easy to be there, and it's easy to get stuck there. I've been on both the light side and the dark side. I can tell you it takes more, as I said earlier, it takes courage to be on this side because it takes courage to be vulnerable. It takes courage to be out in front, right? It takes courage to be hopeful and optimistic because plenty of people want to shoot you down for that, right? And there's a good likelihood that what you're hoping for is not going to come to fruition, right? And so it's easy to be a target there. But I can tell you, having been on both sides, for anybody who's like living in that dark side right now, and you're thinking, man, sure would be easier if I weren't around, or the world would be a better place if I weren't here. I can tell you that I saw a meme once that said that I'll probably butcher it, but basically suicide may take your pain away, but all you're doing is transferring it to those that are around you, or those that are left behind, or something like that. So the pain does not end. It just doesn't. It just keeps going on.
Truth to that.
Yeah.
Thinking about when I came back from Kenya, and one of the first things I did was I started going through my stuff and getting rid of things. I'm like,
exactly.
I thought, what do I need all this stuff for? I haven't worn this in how long? I can bless somebody else with this. And I still do it. I still go through. I've got rid of bags and bags of things and giving it away. And like, I don't need all this stuff. And I don't want more stuff. I mean, a lot of our marketing in America and the American dream is to have more, have it, get, supersize everything, get everything, get. And I'm like, I really don't need that. I need my health. Can't do much without your health. But of course, I need my plants in the patio.
Yes, it's a cute patio. Yes.
Yeah. But I don't need more stuff. Although I do like shoes. I don't need more shoes. I don't need more outfits. I don't need more this, that, or the other thing. I just don't need it to be happy. And so many people tie their happiness to something, or when I get to this point, I'll be happy, or when I get to this point, or when I do this thing, or when I've done that thing. And most people go along and go along and go along, and then they achieve whatever, and then they just keep going, and they don't even celebrate that thing that they achieved.
Eldana, I get stuck there. Listen, I'm not devoid of that struggle. You know, that's why I just say there's my good days and there's my bad days. On my good days, I am trying to focus on becoming a better person. On my bad days, I get right where you just got through describing. And in all honesty, since this whole shutdown, it's probably 50-50, depending on what Larry you're going to get to show up. Because life is a struggle sometimes. It's not.
Oh, yeah.
It's not fair. It's not. No one ever promised it was going to be fair. It was going to be easy. And in many ways, I'm glad that it's not easy. I was asking my son again. We were talking about this show today, or that we're going to be talking about this. And I am so proud. Sometimes you've got a couple of kids. When they actually say something that you've said to them that actually registered, it's like, what? That actually registered with you? Because we were talking about like in today's world, the lockdown, the pandemic, the political unrest, the societal, craziness that's going on. What do we have to be thankful for right now? And so we were talking about the whole World War II generation, and that he actually said that we're getting tougher. My son said this, right? Because he's heard me say, and he reminded me of this. And I'm going to share with you how I heard it. This is not a sexist comment, all right? The word man or men is meant in the more global,
right,
okay?
Yeah.
But I heard it in the Special Forces community.
Right.
That tough times create tough men.
Mm-hmm.
Tough men create easy times. Easy times create weak men. Weak men create tough times, right? And there was an era not so long ago when there were a lot of people talking about toxic masculinity and where did that come from? And a lot of that, studies have shown has come from out of fear and weakness, not out of strength, because strong men don't need to be toxic. So, it's a real psychological kind of spaghetti colander there, right? About all of this. But I think back to my father. My father was a Marine on Iwo Jima, World War II generation. And what did we call that generation of people globally or corporately? The greatest generation, right?
Yeah.
Right. The greatest generation who went off to fight World War II and came back and rebuilt America. That's kind of how we describe them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you think about these folks that went off halfway around the world to fight wars, because this is a world war, right? And then those mostly women who stepped in to run this country while the mostly men were off fighting. What made them so tough? It wasn't World War II. You know what it was? The depression that led up to it.
Yeah.
They were already tough before they went off to war. They'd already sacrificed not decades, but they'd sacrificed. They grew up wanting stuff, right? I think that we've had going back to that phrase, tough times create tough men create easy times. We've had such easy times, we've gotten weak, I believe, as a society. And there's a lot I think we can talk to that, but I'm for right now. I think we're toughening up a little bit. My son, one of the things my son said he's grateful for, spending more time together as family. That he's seen more love now than he has before. There's some, you know this from being around warriors, for most of your life, Eldana. I'll bet dollars to donuts that some of the most loving, caring, heart-centered people are also some of the most badass warriors that you know.
Yeah.
They are not mutually exclusive. And I don't think you can be a badass warrior without being a loving person, because you're willing to sacrifice your own life, not because you hate so much, but because you love so damn much. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think this tough time that we're in right now is creating more heart-centered family units, friends. I know that I'm being much more vocal with my friends now about loving them, caring about them, wanting great things for them than I was a year ago or 6 months ago, for sure.
Oh yeah.
So my hope is that take the political nonsense out of it, and the whatever's going on, with some of this nonsense. My prayer is that we are a stronger, more loving nation on the other side of this. That's what I'm grateful for.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, the pandemic has affected everybody. I live alone, so when all you have is cats to talk to, like,
Zoom is a savior.
right. But you know what? In the
Not the
beginning,
same.
I got so overwhelmed with so many people online that I just didn't want anything to do with it. I mean, I had started to do this Tea Time Tuesday before the pandemic started. And I just found like I could barely take it. I mean, my veterans group that from Saddleback, they were meeting online, and then there was this meeting online, that meeting, and I just got to where I was so overwhelmed. I just kind of went inside, and it was not a good place. I went in and out of that for a while. It wasn't pretty.
How did you come out of it? Or are you out of it? I admit I go in and out of it still today.
Yeah, I mean, I cried a lot. And unfortunately for me, my way to handle it is to isolate. So I wouldn't reach out to anybody. I'd just curl up in a ball, and that's not good. But I started forcing myself to connect with friends, and that's the only way that I could do anything about it. Like there's a Bible study that's on Monday nights for women. And I was like, I don't want to do this. And they're like, do you want to be a leader? And I'm like, no. And they're like, yes. And I'm like, no. And they're like, yes. And I'm like, okay, I'll do. So I was a leader over the summer, but that forced me to show up for the group, which I needed.
Yeah.
Even on the times when I'm like, I don't want to do this. I just want to go stick my head in the sand over there. So forcing myself to do those things. But now that like when Fair Trade Long Beach opened back up, and I was able to kind of, we go in there and you could fix your space up. And I actually moved spaces. So I did some creative stuff there. And I got a little like art book that I draw in, and then I one thing I do is I get my hands in the dirt, and I got more plants than I need out there. I ended up with more plants. Like, you haven't seen it in a while. It looks like a jungle.
I've seen pictures online.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm going to go get a plant. And I come back with 10. I'm like, oh, where are these going to go? I need some more pots. And then before you know it, it's like, I'm not going to have anywhere to walk on my patio.
Yeah.
But getting in the dirt is something that helps. It's like, it's very therapeutic.
Well, that's the thing. I think we need to figure out what it is. Instead of sitting in our room in the closet, curled up in the fetal position, is actually getting out and trying different things and see what works. Since the economy has opened up a little bit in some place, I could tell you that when I'm the business I'm in, it's always been considered essential, and so there hasn't been a real ban on me getting out and going to the hotels that we operate. There's a short period. We have a few hotels in Chicago, and there's a short period where if you're from California, you couldn't fly to Chicago. But as soon as that lifted, I went back to Chicago. And there's something, I think doing things that aren't, how do I say this without offending people, that aren't self-destructive, that increase the serotonin and dopamine levels in your brain, is a good thing, right? There are a lot of negative things that increase the serotonin and dopamine levels, swiping online, several addiction type things. But you know what also increases it? Being with friends, actually face to face, community, hugging people. If there's that safety component, that you've got people that you live with and that is safe. And so it's no wonder that, we're talking about the depression and suicide and overdoses and all that kind of stuff that was happening. People that weren't having human contact, and so they weren't getting the serotonin and dopamine levels. And so they're going elsewhere to get them. Right. So
my poor cats were tired of me hugging them.
I've shared this with my the team at the hotel company. Is that usually the dog is in here and the cat is in here? It's like, man, when we have to go back to the office full time, my dog is going to be totally bummed out and my cat's going to be cheering. Like, I know, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's like, it's I mean, it's a different time, and I think that resilience. I think you're right. That resilience is coming back in people.
I hope so.
There are those who are still very angry, and they're out there. I've made it a point to.
Huh?
I don't have somebody run my social media, so I do my posts in the morning, and then I stay off of it as much as I can, because there's so much negativity out there. There's so much you can get sucked into that.
Oh my gosh!
You see people walking around.
Hey, I was texting a friend of mine last night, who's a wonderful person, and sends me all kinds of news stuff from time to time, and sometimes it's more than I need. And I had to say, listen, I'm on a news fast right now. I'm putting no negative stuff into my brain if I can avoid it. So because she was asking, have you seen this about the news? Have you seen that about the news? I was like, no, I haven't, and I don't need to. I know who I'm voting for. I know all the whatever different things on the ballots that I'm voting for, proposition, whatever. I know my vote. I don't need any more information about it. So I don't need to know. I don't need to know how the confirmation hearing's going.
Yes, I don't need to, because
I have no vote. I have no vote in that. Senators know how they're voting for. So
there's
I don't need to know.
Quote that I guess I heard Dave Ramsey quoted, but Barbara Bush said it, that what's going on in your house is more important than what's going on in the White House.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's
like,
so true.
It's like,
so true. Yeah,
keep your own house clean. Pay attention to your own house, the things in your own house, instead of, it's like, it really doesn't really matter what's going on. Your life really isn't going to change that much.
Yeah, but you're right. It's easy to get sucked under by the negativity, to go down that rabbit hole. And the next thing you know, it's 4 hours later, and all you've been doing is, sucking into this, us against them mentality. Yeah. And the truth is, in this travel thing that we started out this whole conversation on, going to a place like Kenya, or we could come up with most places around the world, you realize we are more alike than we are different. That is just a fact, my friends. Now, having been to 40-ish, 45 different countries, I still believe that we're the best country in the world. I do. And I'll argue with that to anybody. But even with all of our flaws, even with all of our warts, if you are in this country, frankly, if you're in North America, you've got a great thing going for you. But I do love to think about, what do we have more in common than we have apart? Now, don't get me wrong. There are things that I am vehemently opposed to in some of these political parties. I think they're, nut jobs on both sides of the aisle. And if I were a benevolent dictator, there's things I would change for sure, right? Exactly. But that's not going to happen.
Right.
So I have to go about it with a positive attitude. I had lunch a few days ago with a friend of mine that he was just really going down this rabbit hole of negativity about the political climate today. And I had to pull him out of it and said, I was about to say his name, but dude, let's focus on what we're grateful for right now, because that's just dark. Like, his whole facial expression changed. His whole mood changed. His eyes even got dark when he was talking about it, right? And the funny thing is, on both sides of the aisle, you see people who get that way. And the truth is, I think that we need these people. We need people on the right. We need people on the left, because most of us, this is the way life works, right? Is in the middle. Things swing both ways. And so on balance, things are about here, not out here.
Yeah.
So,
And I've caught myself going down the rabbit hole, and however long later, then I'm like, gosh, I'm exhausted. I feel horrible. What,
right.
you know, I'm tired. Why? Oh, I know why, because I'm sitting there, and then it's like, oh wait, I didn't listen to anything. I feel good today.
Yeah. Well, this is why I want people to get intentional about it, because I find myself, again, on my bad days, when it gets to be like 10 o'clock and I just feel like, oh my gosh, life's already a grind, I can go back and look at, you know what I did? I got up in the morning and immediately I started checking emails rather than getting up and doing what I know I'm supposed to be doing. And that is intentionally telling myself, hey, today you're going to be looking for the little miracles in life. You're going to be watching people do things right, not do things wrong. List what I'm grateful for, setting intentionalities, reading what I'm supposed to be reading in the morning, meditating on what I'm supposed to be meditating on, praying on what I'm supposed to be praying about, and then going after tackling life. This is kind of I think that a morning routine done properly with intentionality, that's as important as taking your morning supplements, your morning vitamins, or whatever it is, or going into battle and putting on your armor. If you don't do that, then life is a battle, and you're going to get the snot kicked out of you.
Yeah, it's
true. We really have to do a morning routine, and I'm saying this for me as much as anybody else, because
right. And I'm of like, I have my morning routine and I get up and I do the same thing. I'm looking and or I wake up late and then I skip it. And some part of the thing I do in my morning routine is I stretch. I do some yoga stretches,
right? That's
things.
Great.
And there's days when I'm like, I don't have time for that today. And then the day
what happens?
I'm like, why do I feel so? My back's hurting. What's wrong here? Why do I feel so horrible?
Yeah.
But one thing you were saying about if I'm going to find what people do right today, when you think about the after action review, the first thing in an AAR is what worked, not what didn't work. It's what worked, what was done right first.
That's right.
Like instead of looking for the fault or finding things wrong, finding things right first, and then looking at, okay, well, what didn't work?
Yeah. But, and you touched on it, is that even when you get to the next part, what we do right, or what worked, what we do wrong, or what didn't work. That part is so important, because what's one of the key elements of that section? Without placing blame, just stating the facts.
Right.
Because it's easy to, and this is where Americans drive me nuts sometimes. And it's not just Americans, but really, I think it's particularly prevalent in American society right now. It's easier to place blame and for us to play the victim than to say, what was my involvement in this?
Right. It's like, oh, it's them. They did it.
Exactly.
Look over there.
Right.
Mick has finally made her appearance.
Oh, there she is. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Okay,
she popped in on Joe's.
I
think she popped in.
I heard the scratching coming up the back of the chair. I'm like, okay, somebody else here.
Yeah.
She had to make her appearance.
Okay.
You made your appearance.
Not to be outdone, of course.
Right. Yeah, of course. George got to be on camera. So
Yeah.
Yeah, but the whole placing blame, pointing fingers, let's find, that's the thing. Like, why are you always looking to find somebody else? I didn't do anything, and then the truth always comes out. Like, what? I don't understand. I guess it's human nature to just be like, oh, I don't want to take responsibility for that kind of thing.
Sure. But if we get intentional, I went back, what I said earlier, I do believe is true, is that God is more interested in changing us and changing our circumstance. And you can, if this is the type of person you are, exchange the word God for universe, exchange the word God for Gaia, whatever it is.
Yeah.
If we get to the point where we are more interested in us becoming a better version of ourselves than placing blame, imagine if everyone did that. If we're just trying to become better versions of ourselves, in many ways, it takes the pressure off as well. To say, you know what, I'm still evolving. That F up that I just did, that I flipped that person off in the car today, that I lost my temper today, Yeah, I'm not done cooking yet. That's what my former spouse used to say. Yeah, you're not done cooking. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're right. I'm not done cooking.
yeah. It's like I always say I'm a work in progress because
Yeah, right.
I because I can like I guess because I'm a contracts person and I can write in a certain way, I can machete somebody in an email. And
Yeah,
that used to be my thing before I worked on myself was like,
yeah,
oh, pissed me off. I'm really gonna like
yeah.
butcher you. Well, I had something happen at the beginning of the year
Uh-huh.
and it just hit me wrong. And usually what I do is I will write my feelings on a Word document, sleep on it, get up, come and be like, oh, I'm not sending that. Well, I
Yeah,
didn't do that. I sent it. And
yeah,
then I was just kind of like, oh, I'm such a work in progress,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I was so unforgiving of myself for a while. It took me a minute to forgive myself before I actually reached out to the two people and said, look, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's, you know, I reacted wrong. I apologize, blah, blah, blah. Please forgive
That's
me.
awesome. That's awesome that you did that. That takes guts to do. That speaks a lot to character for someone to be willing to apologize, particularly in a business environment nowadays. Yeah, I still have to have these conversations with, I'm pretty good at it nowadays, because I have to constantly coach and lead other people because I am in an organization where people work with each other. And when you've got type A hard chargers, we all expect a lot of each other. And then when somebody falls short, it's easy to send off an email, but then you forget, oh my gosh, I've actually got to have a relationship with this person. I'm going to have to work with them again.
Yeah.
There's repercussions to me being short, terse, and super direct, right? But I think when we take that direct approach, that machete approach that you talked about, but we sandwich that with love and respect, that's much more effective to building
Oh,
long-term
definitely.
relationships than just coming in and slashing and burning, you know?
Right. That's just not, I don't do that kind of thing anymore,
Yeah,
but just,
yeah.
it was kind of like egregious the way it was happening.
I,
And
I do it too.
like I should not have reacted that way, and I did. But then
Yeah.
when I turned around and apologized, the one guy that said, I know that's not your character. I figured something must really be going on
Wow.
with you, and I thank you. I really appreciate you apologizing. And then the other person said, I'm a fellow believer. We're all a work in progress, and so the thing about any of that when we're like we're human and we're going to screw up and
Mhm.
probably royally screw up. And the thing is, okay, I screwed that up. I have to go make it right. It's like making amends or whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
And that's if more people did that kind of thing, and because I'm not perfect, I'm yeah, I'm probably going to do something else screwy. Who knows when? But
I
it's
love
not
this.
that I intend to. But cleaning it up is the thing that most people don't do.
They don't clean it up. This is why daily, I've got it written on my computer on a little tab right here. Offer grace, patience, and forgiveness freely and often. Right?
Yeah, I have
Um,
my be kind and then extra
yeah.
grace required. So,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah. So I'm glad that those people that you sent that off to were willing to say that's a testament to you, Aldana, that they said, "Hey, I know that that's outside your character." Um, and for what I have to do sometimes, and this might resonate with one of your viewers, is that I used to be, and I still am from time to time, plagued with shame, and I'm grateful that I'm not there any longer, where I'm like constantly feeling shame about. I could list a whole. We could take an hour, and I tell you all the same things I used to be shameful about, right? Um, but I remind myself one of my mantras, daily mantras, is I'm not who I used to be,
exactly.
right?
Yes.
And that right there is so freeing. If you've done even an ounce of work today, I'm not who I used to be yesterday or 5 minutes ago, even. There's freedom in that, you know?
Yeah, there is
Um, and I'm not who I'm going to be, right? Like you said earlier, I'm still a work in
work
progress,
in progress always. It's
you know?
like you're not going to stop uh, working until you leave the planet. So,
Well, We shouldn't be. I think those people that get depressed, though, those people that you were talking about earlier, like, I just want to get through these 3 years.
Yeah.
Those people are stuck there.
Yeah.
They I don't, there are some religions that believe in karma and all that kind of stuff, right? And we can talk about that too. But there are some religions that believe, once you have evolved enough, you're done cooking, right? You've reached enlightenment, you've reached nirvana. There's a state where you don't have to come back and do this over again. So whether you believe in that or not, karma, isn't it a great way just to think about life? Boy, if I get intentional with trying to be a better person, life's going to get, there's going to be more joy in my life tomorrow than there was today.
Yeah.
Doesn't that just sound awesome?
I know. Yeah. Like, it is awesome.
Whether it's true or not, boy.
Yeah. And I wanted to, as we're coming and we've been going, we could probably go for all night. I could get sleep. It's been an hour.
It's been an hour.
We can just keep talking and talking.
Yeah.
But I just want to bring up one thing and then we can wrap it up. It's like, I went, did a lot of work and I made amends. I think we had a conversation when I went to my parents. I told you I went to my parents' graves and made amends to them. And people have said to me, well, why did you do that? They were alcoholics. They were horrible. I'm like, I made amends for hanging on to the resentment.
Yeah.
I had to go there to let go of that. But so I went and I did that with a lot of people. But then I was challenged because I never thought about making amends and forgiving myself.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of unforgiveness towards myself for all the screwed up things I've done in my life. And a lot of people carry that they may forgive other people. Forgiveness is very freeing, and it's not for the other person. It's for you to get it out of your space. Yeah. But you have to forgive yourself too. I think it's important.
Yeah, there was years ago I went to Gallup, New Mexico. My brother had passed away in Dallas, and I decided I was going to drive. Flew there, rented a U-Haul, packed a bunch of his stuff up, drove back up to San Francisco. I was living there at the time, and I met a guy who was a Navajo code talker. He has since passed away, and so immediately when I found out that he was a code talker, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I love you." But I remember him sharing with me that, and we were talking about forgiveness. I was just starting my journey that I'm on now. And I was talking about all this resentment I had. And I remember him saying that, forgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting it to hurt the other person.
Exactly.
And it's like, oh man, that's a good one, right? That's a writer downer.
Yeah.
But he asked that question that you just said to me. And this is where a lot of the shame came in. What do you need to forgive yourself for? And I just broke down because there was so much. And so, Aldana, I'm grateful that you had me on here today. This has reminded me how grateful I need to be every day. And so there's been tons of nuggets that you shared with me. I was like, oh yeah, that's a great reminder. So one of my things is TFTR. Thanks for the reminder. So thank you for having me on here.
A lot of nuggets with me too. That I was like, oh yeah, I got to think about that. Yeah, I got to do that. So I'm just so appreciative that you came on, and let's see, let me put this banner up again. So if anybody wants to go and enter your gratitude contest.
Yeah, there you go. The sweepstakes. It's not a contest. Got to legally say that.
Yeah. Okay. True. Yeah. Sweepstakes. Gratitude sweepstakes. Yeah. And it's just about recording what you're grateful for. And I always have, some of the things I teach in self-leadership is about saying things to yourself in the mirror, how awesome you are. Yeah. But you might say in the mirror also how grateful, that might be something. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm grateful for this. I mean, sometimes or another thing I challenge people to say is, what do you absolutely love about yourself? Not like. There's a difference between like and love. What do you absolutely love about yourself? So we'll end with that. What do you absolutely love about yourself today, Larry?
Well, let me say this, by the way. I believe all that stuff you just said, we need to say it out loud. Something happens to the universe and it activates it when you say things out loud. I declare this, whatever it is. Yeah. So what I love about me, honestly, is my heart and the compassion that I have in spite of so many of my flaws. I really do love that. I feel like um, I'm not afraid any longer to tell people that I love them. I'm not afraid any longer to share my vulnerability. I love the journey that I'm on. So I love my heart. I love the compassion that I now have in my heart, because that hasn't always been there. How about you, Aldana? What do you love about you?
Well, I love my tenacity. I've been through a lot in my life, and I love that I've been knocked down so many times. I just keep getting back up. But I love my ability to multitask and do many things, and just be open to sharing and helping and serving. And I'm very vulnerable with things that have happened in my life, and I'm vulnerable. I love that I'm at peace with myself, that I can be vulnerable with people and let them see the things that I've been through, just as an example of, you can come from alcoholic parents and have a horrible life and make a bunch of stupid mistakes, but you can still have peace, joy, happiness, and be grateful. So, yeah.
I love that. That's good. Well, I love you, Aldana. I'm glad that our paths have crossed in this journey. And I am just so inspired by what you're doing. So thank you for carrying the torch.
Awesome. Well, I love you too, and I'm so grateful that you came on to talk about gratitude today.
It's an honor. Thank you.
All right, everybody. That's a wrap until next week. So feel free to comment and share this with anybody, and also put in the comments what you're grateful for. I'd love to see what you're grateful for too. So until next time, nakupenda, which in Swahili means love.
Yeah.